are live. Welcome back, party people, for another house party live.
Whoop whoop.
the DAOhaus House Party, House Party live, I should say. Thanks for
Three times
joining
fast.
us. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to our guests this week, Drew and Metadreamer from MetaFactory. I almost dropped the ball almost immediately on introductions there.
Almost.
With your real name. Word. Yeah, so we'll be talking to them about MetaFactory in just a minute. First, we usually start with a bit of housekeeping, housework up front. But honestly, I don't know. Sam, do we have anything cool to talk about?
Nothing major product wise, really just tightening up the alpha, fixing bugs, getting ready for bigger release in a couple weeks. Have some new boosts out this week probably for Discord notifications and Discourse forum launch and stuff like that, but all in alpha, so all going good.
Right on. Yeah, and as usual, if anybody wants to poke at those alpha features, they're up there, and you can actually earn some stuff, tokens. Otherwise, if you join Foundations DAO, we'll put up links for all that kind of stuff. And yeah, on the comms front, we're pushing toward that launch. So sign up for the newsletter, check out the blog. We got posts about some of the new features coming up. Just working on a series lately, handling a lot of the frequent questions that we get. People are setting up DAOs and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, that's it for homework. Let's kick off what everyone who isn't already a member of DAOhaus is here for. The MetaFactory convo. In fact, that's probably why Nick shows up late. He's like, I don't care what's going on in DAOhaus. Time for the guests. Time for the guests. Yeah, guys. So, you want to start a little with I think we'll get to MetaFactory, but how did you guys first end up in the weird Ethereum decentralized, whatever space?
MetaDreamer, go for it.
Yeah, so for me, I've been kind of like following the crypto space loosely for a while. Like everyone has that story of like how they were like OG mining Bitcoin. I do too, except I sold all my Bitcoin at $10, so I didn't get any upside. So and yeah, I kind of was like sour about that for a long time and like kind of ignored crypto space for a while until like Ethereum in 2016. And that's when I kind of just like started getting not actually involved, but just like reading up on stuff and like, buying ETH and that typical stuff. And then I didn't really sort of think I could get involved until like I went to DevCon in Osaka and I realized that not everyone knows Solidity, and that is not a requirement to contribute to the Web3 space. So then that was exciting, and I met a bunch of people there from like Metacartel and other things, and that kind of like inspired me to start contributing more directly. And first it was Metagame. I saw like Pete's blog posts on Metagame and jumped into that, started contributing there. Then I've been following like Metacartel for a while, and like I saw that they posted like this branding competition for SwagDAO, which is basically apparel and better swag for like crypto conferences, but a DAO to like run that. And I thought that was cool because like the years prior to that, I ran like a fashion tech startup like in my uni years. So I was like, oh, cool. It's like fashion and Ethereum and Web3. So it felt like my thing. And then that's where I sort of came up with the MetaFactory brand, and, met Drew, and then like, kind of just like went from there. And yeah, I think ETH Denver was like the first time I met like most people for the first time. Sam, the whole like DAOhaus Raid Guild guys, Drew, all of Metacartel. And yeah, since then I like basically like after ETH Denver like was basically just like transitioning out of my like past career as like a software dev consultant building like web and mobile apps to now working as of January this year on Web3 full time, which is awesome.
Free. Free from the 9-to-5 slavery.
Actually, it was like 4 to 3 because I worked in Australia time, being in Canada. So it was like it was a bit backwards, but it worked for me because like I'm a night person, and like throughout school, like that was my schedule. So I kind of just kept it going. But now it's like I have like 5 years of momentum to like shift now to like go to an earlier schedule.
And you're on a time zone where you basically have to be up early if you want to talk to Europe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One of the challenges with this whole decentralized thing. Yeah, so I have lived many lives, had many different career paths in my past. Most recent and longest running is within tech space, software more specifically. I founded and operated two like sister web and mobile application development companies for about a decade. And that obviously from the technology front exposed me to really early on to like kind of crypto space. At the same time, I was independently interested, researching casually, economic theory, monetary policy, really wrapping my head around that idea of sound money. And then obviously the actual catalyst moment, which I've shared a couple of times, but I'll share again here, was I was also got pretty involved in the medical marijuana industry within California. I was a producer processor for a number of medical dispensaries in and around the Los Angeles area. And one day I met with one of the dispensaries that we grew on behalf of, and I was like, how are things going? And he was like, man, I started to accept this thing called Bitcoin, and our sales have just been crazy. I've had to hire these 2 interns to run around the city and go on Craigslist and cash this stuff out. And it's like this virtual money thing and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, huh, interesting. That was actually my bigger discovery moment when I went home, read the white paper, and like, this is awesome. And so, yeah, my exposure started with that relationship, and then grew from there. From a technology perspective, I started to follow it more and started to explore early if we could serve Web3 development, but it was still pretty early. And then in very beginning of 2017, I made the decision to leave the agencies I founded to make a full-time shift into crypto, and saw with what was happening with Ethereum and the growth of new potential real business models and businesses and opportunities beyond dark markets and gambling sites really starting to emerge. So yeah, I was doing some actually some writing, blogging, bounties. I entered a design competition for a wallet called Pillar, and that was my first kind of consulting gig. So ended up winning that contest. Partnered with the creative director of my agency, who ended up going out to London with me, and that was my first like kind of full-time role with Pillar, who I still work with on the product strategy side. And then yeah, I do, you get into the conference circuit and you really meet the people, and similarly to Hamad's story, there it is, Metadreamer's story. The Ethereum community is like actually quite encouraging and welcoming, and I was just more excited to get involved and realize that this culture that was brewing, this subculture in and of itself, was extremely powerful, and this is kind of why I loved MetaCartel and what they were trying to do, and not just in terms of pushing forward initially UX enhancement and practices within Web3, but the grant giving side and whatnot, but also just like the community building and network potential, and really leaning into the social aspects. And we were talking about, it was actually Osaka we were talking about, and Swag, and how some of the companies did it really well. Aave had anybody's out there, that yellow sushi ghost shirt, and everyone wanted it, and they like rushed to the booth, and I was like, we should lean into this more, and like, instead of it just being a bunch of like giveaway shirts with the typical logo stamps, like we should make crypto merch and crypto like swag and promote crypto culture. And then looking at what Socks had done with bonding curves, and how we could actually throw DeFi and token mechanics into these things, and then reflecting on MetaCartel and the growth and potential of DAOs. All these ideas were swirling around, and like MetaDreamer mentioned, Swag DAO was born, which was initially just this idea of like, how can we improve and what can we do? And then we did like a rebranding, which MetaDreamer won with the MetaFactory submission. And ever since then, the experiment has continued to evolve, and now we're kind of a fully functioning DAO. There's a governance token that powers that, and we're constantly on the hunt for new projects, creators, partners, ideas, tweets to turn into apparel. So yeah.
Yeah. So what I love, particularly, like, I'm always excited to talk to you guys just on the, even the broader side of all this stuff, because it's a getting into merch and like apparel in the space is a different version of layering on top of the real world. And so, like a lot of the conversation in the space is cryptocurrency and stuff like that, right? So it's like easy to imagine cash is inconvenient because you have to carry it to a place, and if we had a digital version of that, like the efficiency increase is easy to imagine. Ultimately, if you want to make shirts or something like that somebody can actually wear, like there's gonna be a ceiling on efficiency, right? Like you still have to do all this sort of consumer packaged goods nonsense of like shipping and printing and all that kind of stuff. So everything you guys end up talking about is more like this additive thing, where you talk to a lot of cryptocurrencies and it's like, oh, we're going to get rid of cash. You guys aren't trying to get rid of apparel. You're just trying to use this like meta layer on top of it to do cooler stuff with it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think like it's really interesting. You're totally right in that, the whole Web3 space in general has this like, culture of like everything digital, digital as much as possible. But, the sad reality is we still have, bodies made of meat, and, we'll still exist in the physical realm for a while. So, and I think like the fact that we are operating in the Web3 space, but, with this whole physical goods play is makes us stand out a bit more too, and as like a unique offering for a lot of communities. And interestingly, we've like gotten super deep onto like the production side of things. So like we never expected this, but like there's a lot of like impact we're having on like the whole fashion supply chain and production of these things, because to do this at scale without being community funded and everything like is not easy. And we saw this as like huge holes in like the whole fashion world in terms of like overproduction and inefficiencies and waste and environmental impact. And there's a lot of people in the fashion industry who've been advocating for like solutions to this in terms of like decentralized production with like micro factories distributed around the world, where you can use the latest in like fashion tech has come pretty far too, so you can use the latest like technologies to be able to like pretty much make anything with a fairly small shop, and sort of standardize the process. So people like we've met with some groups like A Industries and Rickard Linquist, who's like wrote this whole thesis on this stuff, and he's been trying to like espouse all this to the fashion industry for like many years now, and like everyone just thought he's crazy, you know, for like, oh, why are you open sourcing and giving away all your fashion templates for free? Like, what's that about? You know, they didn't get it. So it's like when we came across Rickard and like he talked with us, like, you know, we instantly got what he was trying to go for, because what he was trying to go for is applying like Web3 culture and Web3 ideologies to like the fashion ecosystem. And for that reason, like we actually position MetaFactory in a place where we can disrupt a lot of stuff in the fashion industry that they actually aren't able to because of being stuck in this sort of old way of operating. And, you know, I think for that reason, it's like being able to like bridge the physical world and the digital world is like going to be increasingly more important. And I think like that's pretty much what we spent the last year mostly doing, is like getting all that stuff in order and the legal engineering around it too, because, you know, that's another hard part, is like as soon as you're operating a business in which you have to be like the centralized entity to like handle shipping these things out, like how do you like, you know, balance that with like decentralization and all these sort of things. So we realized a lot too that the decentralization comes on many layers, and, you know, we can create these like interesting structures where like the DAO, the decentralized decision making, can happen in terms of like where the platform goes, how the money's spent, all these sort of things. And that's fine, even if there's like a bit of trust involved in like, you know, Drew's going to ship out this jacket to me, or these sort of things. Like people have this idea that everything has to be decentralized, and they kind of like sacrifice a lot of user experience for it. And like at the end of the day, it isn't even decentralized. It's like decentralized on a technical level, but not like a political and cultural level. So that's kind of what we want to like push more out there as well. Like the cultural and political decentralization of power, and not only just like on a smart contract level, and, you know, share this with like fashion industry and everywhere else as well.
Yeah. You know, adding something, I guess, or just recognizing the situation also with like merch or apparel. Like people aren't going to stop wearing clothes. They might wear less clothes because they're just all sitting at home. Maybe it's like top up only. It's like the crypto voxels problem. No one's wearing pants, right? But yeah, people aren't going to stop buying clothes. But and the other thing is like merch and fashion are typically the first place that any subculture will express itself beyond its like original art, or if it is a creative force itself. And so it's also usually the first way that someone who aligns with that culture, those values, will support how they express their alignment, right? By buying merch and rocking that merch in front of friends, family, you know, on the street. I think that that was also like kind of just a general motivation at the same time, is this like, it's a celebration and a place for us to like really share, express, and for others, in a sense, like physical, you know, tangible goods provide an anchor point, an emotional point, and can serve to onboard people in new ways too, because it starts with, man, that's a dope shirt. Where'd you get it? It's like, cool, you know, like story starts. Oh yeah, I get this digital wearable too. What's a digital wearable? Well, it's an NFT that you can wear and like you own, and you can wear it in virtual worlds. Well, what's an NFT? What do you mean virtual worlds? You're basically sent down the rabbit hole because like that's a dope hoodie, right? So that's kind of, I think, the effect that we're also trying to capture and create. And then, you know, at the same time, like it's really though for us, it's for crypto natives. It's like, you know, really meant to, again, like promote what we're doing. If that goes mainstream, awesome, I'm all for it. But while we're here, like this, what's important to us? Like what can we do? And so layering in DeFi instruments in like kind of what we're trying to do with Pool Party, or using physical merch as a token distribution mechanism to give people, like, again, an on-ramp, using tokens as gates for exclusive gear that you can only get access to if you hold a token or so much of a token or an NFT. All of these are kind of cool ways that we can also offer to this exploding personal community social token space, in the sense that they're starting to recognize, whether from within Web3 or Web2 communities that are starting, and personalities, brands that are starting to see these things, like they're starting to recognize tokens as amazing tools for incentive alignment and community creation. And it's a lot of like figuring out, well, what's my token gonna do? And there's been kind of been up till recently, like you need to know. Like you need to know, and it's all got to be designed in white paper and researched. And well, now there's this kind of emerging idea, and people have been talking about this lean token design where you can figure it out. And if you're allowing a community together and you're providing like a guide, we can collectively kind of figure these things out as we go. And so we see like Collabland has done for conversation, and using tokens as an initial gate to create opportunity and incentive for people to buy into a community. MetaFactory can do the exact same thing via merch and create a low hanging, easy opportunity for, it's like, yeah, and if you own our token, so much of our token, we can get, you can get our merch over here, or you can get a discount on our merch, or if you buy our merch, you get the token. So like all these things can start to play in terms of initial community building and launching. And then, yeah, what Metadreamer was touching on in terms of the production side and whatnot, it's often that it's an outside it takes an outside perspective to disrupt like an industry. And we're technologists. I know Metadreamer, you've had some experience in like the fashion industry previously, but like we're primarily technologists coming into a fashion industry. I don't know anything about fashion, or I didn't know a lot more now. And our perspective of what we're doing in Web3, when we like, just makes perfect sense to us. Like, why wouldn't you do it this way? From their perspective, it's like this, no, like that will ruin the model. And so it's fun because, yeah, we found these rebels within that space, that legacy kind of perspective, that are thinking similarly, but from their context. It's been exciting to see that, like, now we're activating each other, and how can this go beyond just merch marketplace, right? Like, what can we do to actually show crypto values and at a social and a business level beyond just smart contract magic, but decentralized production in terms of creating stronger, more secure, more fair in terms of value distribution supply chains. So, and that's exciting too, because just like we're celebrating crypto culture, we see like Web3 is more than a tech, right? It's a movement. It's the values can do, and the communities built can move a lot more than just, architecting cool apps.
Yeah.
What you said there that I appreciate is the more fair aspect, right? Like if you look at some of the existing stuff in apparel, structures, like, the emergence of like sneakerheads and stuff, and the idea of, like these limited drops, and that turns into a whole sub market of, scarce, like things that have value because of their scarcity. Like that's
Right.
the model. That's the model you're talking about that the industry knows. And there's always this weird, and I've talked to people from that space about digital things, and even those people who like, oh yeah, well this is a limited run, so that's why this sneaker's worth $800. Like, they don't believe that that those same dynamics exist inside of like World of Warcraft, and I know that they do from playing the games. And it's like CS skins or whatever, right? Like, we know that can exist in a place where it can be completely digital. And then I think if you merge the two the right way, you can create a thing where you don't have to like live in LA and be willing to stand by the Supreme shop for 3 days before the drop happens to have access to this thing that ends up being this underlying like medium of exchange for value, ultimately related to these products that are the like your hoard of sneakers. Like it ends up, there's an access limitation created by the meat spaceness, created by the traditional, just the way the industry works and all that kind of stuff. And like, you guys are right at that space that I like I love it because just thinking about it that slightly different way, you've already transitioned into this thing where, yeah, more people have access, but you can use these other ways to introduce scarcity that are kind of like additive instead of, subtractive, if that makes sense. Like instead of saying, well, there's only ever going to be 500 of these, you could do it in different ways that don't feel so. I mean, you can certainly have that also because people love that, but you can also have a version of it where it's open to the whole world. And like I said, not just the people that happen to like live close to Supreme on Beverly Boulevard, or wherever it is.
Yeah, I think like the in the traditional world for like the longest time before Web3, the people that like sort of accrued the most value were the ones who like sat at the intersection of like transactions. So that was a cause of a lot of the inefficiencies in the world and how value is like flowed, where for example, like these guys who are standing in front of these like shops in LA to like scalp all the merch and resell it, like they get to take almost like all the upside because they're the ones who are sitting at the intersection of transaction. With Web3, because we don't need those like middlemen anymore, and we can transact freely on a global level, just like we can share information freely on a global level with the internet. That enables these value flows to be like to go actually to the right places where we intend them to go, and for this element of scarcity to actually result in like the outcome we set out to create when we made this scarce thing, which in the traditional world it's like you can kind of aim there, but like you have no control over what happens, and like all the inefficiencies of how value is flowed like causes a lot of weird like incentives and outcomes. And I think like for that reason we're able to sort of reprogram how value flows around. And this goes all the way again to the production side as well, where traditionally like these fashion companies make the most, but like on the production side they got like zero upside, and they're often like struggling majorly. With Rickard, for example, he's open sourced this huge catalog of like templates and cuts for different types of fashion, and he's wanted people to use them, but like, and people have used them, but he's had no ways to sort of like track how they're being used. So never mind like any sort of financial upside, he didn't even get like the sort of emotional satisfaction of seeing how his thing was used. So with NFTs and blockchain and all this sort of stuff, we can actually make that possible. Like that's what he realizes, like the thing that was missing that he wasn't able to realize his vision was like that tech layer that Web3 brings to be able to like tile these things together, where now he can actually track through the NFT everyone who's created like a MetaFactory garment using that template. And then based on all the sales that garment will ever have, secondary or primary, we can actually encode into the blockchain itself like the royalties that will flow back to Rickard for creating that original template and for contributing to the success of that product. And similarly on the other side of things, like on the consumer side, the consumers and like the people on the ground are really the ones who define the culture, right? Like whatever gets popular, whatever sort of like has the most success is defined by what people want to wear. And of course, a lot of it's marketing, but at the end of the day, like the people who have the most influence on that is like the culture and the people on the ground level. But typically all the value flows are going like away from them to these like big fashion companies, and there's very little value flowing back. So with MetaFactory, we kind of want to like create this idea of like bi-directional consumerism, where like the line between a consumer and an owner starts to become blurred, where with MetaFactory, everything you buy in MetaFactory, we do like retroactive airdrops of robot tokens. And that's pretty cool because like you get to sort of be a consumer in this thing and then now have ownership of that thing and kind of dictate how it gets shaped in the future, and then also get to share in the upside of everyone else who's trying to help you do that. And I think tokens for that reason are like a really effective form of like incentive alignment, where you just know immediately anyone else who has this token, you're on the same side. And the sort of like
a creative level as well, just really quick. Also like our brands that we've launched kind of under MetaFactory, there have been 2 so far in collaboration with kind of more known or crypto artists. The first was Wicked Sunday Club with Twisted Vacancy, and the other one recently was Vonker with Van. What we do is those artists, and when you kind of buy into the membership, those artists are offering style guides of basically their entire like creative palette, or the people who the members to come in and creatively use their artistic like kind of guidelines and create their own merch, their own art in the same look. So they're actually, in terms of blending the line between owner and consumer, we're looking to explore that and push the boundaries of that at a creative level as well, over like actual branding, and to some extent, obviously within like kind of the brand guidelines. But that provides a whole new cooperative opportunity as well in terms of like what's possible.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. I don't know if
I think you're cutting out
a little bit. But so you guys are giving out rewards based on buy things.
You're cutting out, Deegan.
Well, I'll just
drop it in chat, or I can take a guess at what you were saying based on the 5 words that I heard. It's related to something that I had written down anyway. You know, the idea of bidirectional consumerism, like, one, I don't think people realize how huge it is in the direction toward the designers and the artists. Like, I don't think people realize how much. This is the thing that I dealt with a lot in the sort of media space in my like previous life of legal things, is, you know, handling royalties for artists. Like, artists are consistently screwed, and they're particularly screwed like when it hits the second, you know, if you resell a thing, they have no right to get any of that. And that's and particularly in like the fine art market or something like that. Like, somebody makes a painting, if it sells the second time for $2 million, they don't get a taste of that. They only get the original like $10K they sold it for at their gallery opening, right? On the other side of that, you know, if I buy a shirt, all I get is the shirt. And this is what I think Deacon was maybe bringing up that relates to your tokens and stuff. Like, there are also added rewards, you know, for the consumer. Like, but you literally become part of this ecosystem just by buying things through your you know, platform, basically. And that's kind of that token thing, right? So it's sort of it's you can apply the same things you see in these token projects, where it's sort of like, here's a retroactive airdrop for everyone that's ever used Uniswap. You know, when you start to layer these things on the real world, you can do a token drop for anyone who's ever bought your merch at a concert. Like, that seems like a really powerful thing for a band to be able to do. You know, we're gonna drop our new single to anyone who's ever bought a ticket, a shirt, you know, whatever. Like, it just
it could be an NFT,
fluid and cool. Yeah.
And like, see, like, then none of this stuff has been possible before, because like the information and like data and like value has all been fragmented, you know, in like different like centralized pockets of things that have no interoperability or anything. So that's really the power of like Web3, is like creating this like fluid, you know, value flows on a global scale. And yeah, totally, with like, you know, imagine, we always like use this analogy, but like, imagine like, you know, I saw this video the other day, it was like, instead of buying like a Model S when the Model S came out, you bought Tesla stock, or like the equivalent amount of Tesla stock, you could now afford like, I think it was like 200 Model S's or something. And, you know, that's the thing, is like, but the people that helped Tesla succeed were the people who bought their cars, you know, at the end of the day. So imagine if every time you bought a Tesla, you got some Tesla stock, or every time you watched Netflix or bought something on Amazon, you got Amazon stock. That's kind of how we see, you know, MetaFactory operating. And, you know, the traditional sort of model is like, you know, you raise a bunch of money from like investors. So this is like one group of people here. You raise a bunch of money from them to then try to create a product to sell to like this other group of people. And then both these groups of people kind of have different interests, where the consumers, they really want the best value. They really want like sort of the best for them, which is often the opposite of what the investors want, which is like as big of a return on their investment as possible. So for us, is like, why, instead of being in a tug of war between these two different types of people, we just like get the money from our consumers and then make them the sort of investors of MetaFactory, where we're not selling tokens or anything, but we're, you know, people who help contribute designs, products, like everything that helps for our success. We just continuously retroactively distribute tokens to those people. And I think like that model is going to be like more common too in 2021 in like crypto projects, is just figuring out how to get tokens into the right hands of people who are actually creating value for your project. And like, the more accurate you can make that, the higher quality your community will be, and sort of the stronger foundation you'll have to sort of grow your platform on. Where, the 2017 model was just like, do a huge token sale, raise a shit ton of money, more than you know what to do with,
paralyzing
yeah,
amount
paralyzes
of money.
you. Yeah, waste it, or like, because you don't have that sort of like leanness anymore, you kind of like stagnate. Like money can literally be like the thing to kill a big project. So for us, like, yeah, so for us, being able to like, it's nice because like we're a for-profit entity, like we're selling merch, there is like profit there, which is not the case for a lot of Web3 projects. So I think that's another benefit of being in this like physical goods space, is like we have a clear revenue stream that we can sort of use to like keep ourselves afloat. And me and Drew don't pay us salaries at all. Like we get robot tokens just like anyone else who's contributing, and all the funds go into a treasury that all the token holders control and how it's spent. And we can actually create this bridge between the legal entity LLC, which is like interacting with the physical world, and the DAO, by having this agreement that the legal entity can sort of the DAO can sort of say what the legal entity should do, and in this way, like we can keep that legal separation without having to like do all this crazy paperwork, or like figure out a way to get every DAO member on the legal entity, treat them as two separate entities, but still sort of like communicating, coordinating with each other.
The economic side of that too, where the LLC that's basically like capturing all the profits from product sales, basically just buy back in market make, add liquidity to Robot. So it's all funneled back into Robot, which is owned by the members. So it's essentially, that is the loop, essentially the feedback loop.
Out of the chat, Deacon said, when Wall Street Bets hoodie. Which
so we were just talking about
that before we started recording. So mark it. We made it 42 minutes before somebody brought up WSB.
We need to do it.
Yeah. So this is my plan for it, is like, we have this like hooded like robe thing that we can use. So we'll just make it all green, like a green hooded like cape robe thing, and then on the back have like graffiti like WSB, and it'll be like, it's like the Robin Hood like outfit, but like for Wall Street Bets. And so it's like that green hooded thing with Wall Street Bets logo in red. Nice. I think it'd do well.
You talked to Winston, he's got a good hood, like a robe design, hooded robe design too, I think.
Yeah, that was like Kerp. I remember you wanted that robe design, and that's what he came up with. So that's something we can use too. The real Robin Hood. Yeah.
Kind of just want to fuck the banks with like the Wall Street guy, like Wall Street Bets logo.
Oh man,
that's essentially where I'm at.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like NFT artists are gonna have a field day with this. It's gonna be a lot of like art.
That's what we've been like essentially designed to do, though. And like again, our most successful items have been tweets, or been born from tweets, or been born from some sort of like just candid moment that is like this is so indicative of like crypto culture and values. Like let's commemorate it with some merch or something. And so
that's like,
this is what it's designed for, and our process is primarily all on demand, so we don't have to worry about the overhead or the potential inefficiencies of overproducing or stocking or whatnot. We can basically handle it super efficiently. So.
And if you want to do in-person drops, you could do them at GameStops.
There you go.
Yeah,
exactly. They have retail space available.
There you go.
Yeah. And it's like, it's really interesting to see like how fashion technology has been evolving over the last while, because like it's only really now that it's possible to do what we're doing. Like, so for us, like, we wanted to be efficient as possible. We need to eliminate that whole process of like, designing something, like trying to like figure out the measurements and then create a physical version and then iterate because it didn't fit well, and like just have to do that. Usually it's like a 3-month process, and it's expensive and like not scalable. And so like there's been recent advancements, for example, in like the fabric simulation and like virtual like design stuff, where we can actually create all of our garments in like 3D design software and simulate the fabric and how it'll fit and the measurements and the sizing, and like see where it's tight, where it's not, like have all that done completely digitally and have it be like physically accurate. And even like there's this, we have like basically like hundreds of these swatches of like fabrics. Each of these has a code where this code can actually, there's like a digital equivalent for this fabric. So we can see which fabric we like and then model it and simulate it in a digital space exactly how it would physics wise, in terms of how it like falls and stretches and all this sort of stuff. And with that actual like production, like manufacturing side, the advancements in printing technology and laser cutting technology and all these sort of things like make it a lot more feasible now to actually where we can do our designs, not have any like upfront costs, and then like produce these garments without having to go through like test samples for each one. Well, like without having to do like extensive multiple stage test samples, and like go to market with it within like a few weeks, just based off a digital design, instead of having to like have a long-winded process and put up huge upfront investment and all this sort of thing. Where, and the cool thing is we want to make all this stuff that we've worked on available to anyone to use. So like some random kid in high school can come to us with a design and launch his fashion company like that with zero money down on his side. Whereas traditionally, to do that, you need to like find relationships with manufacturers, put up a bunch of upfront capital to like generate your inventory, like figure out the whole like shipping logistics. Like there's so much stuff that you have to do. Like, you're easily like 20 grand in the red just even before you start. For us, we want to like just abstract that all away for creatives, so they can just come in with what they want to do, their ideas, their creativity, focus just on that, and have us take care of the rest of it. And it's advantageous for us because we have an upside in them, they have an upside in us. And it doesn't have to be like we want to keep all this technology and all this stuff for ourselves because that's our competitive advantage. Web3 turns that around, where collaborating with as many people as possible instead of trying to compete with as many people as possible is the competitive advantage.
I love the idea that tightening that cycle also, like, you can get from meme to actionable way to monetize that with merch if you're so inclined faster as well. Because you don't have to, there's a lot of ideas where somebody, you go, somebody should put that on a t-shirt, but like by the time it's ready, you don't even remember what was happening. Yeah. Like,
also, like, we don't need to put it on the t-shirt. Like, the person who had that idea should be like, someone should put it on, wait, MetaFactory, bring it to us. We'll be like, all right, here's the template, they do it, or they send us the design, we put on the template, send them a sample if they need that approval, or it just goes in store, right? So that's exactly, now you don't have to, your $1 billion idea can actually,
right.
your t-shirt.
You have to buy that like inventor's series of tapes that they sell in like, commercials.
Course, yeah.
2 a.m. Do you have an invention? So with the last 10 minutes of the house party, we do when there's time, and I feel like we have it today. We usually do what we call the boost bash, which is really just sort of self-promotional for our infrastructure of what we call boosts. The layers we're building on top of DAOs to let them do cool stuff. How does this, how does the stuff you're talking about mesh with DAOs? And then like what would be your dream plugin just inside of your DAO platform to let, it feels like, is it a DAO, every DAO gets a shop that kind of runs through that, and so it's, they can or I don't know, ideas? Anyone? This one's open to
Word.
anybody in here who wants to throw anything out.
I honestly, yeah, I think just really easy process to facilitate merch for any project or creator. So just a win overall. It like that. There's no cost. There's no like hassle in terms of fulfillment and like the headache to do any of that. So people don't have to. It doesn't have to be an extra afterthought. It's just like, oh yeah, we just do merch through MetaFactory, right? That would be, from my perspective, that'd be an awesome thing to be able to offer any DAO, any project token artist. And I think it's pretty powerful just too because of all the incentive alignment that's built into kind of our system and network and process.
Yeah. I think too, the like for MetaFactory, first of all, like the quality of our products is like a league above this sort of traditional stuff you get with like your Printfuls or your Teesprings and things like that. And we really want to offer like a premium level of quality and like unique cuts and stuff that like aren't available. So that like that's one thing that we can sort of provide. The second thing is like we can integrate on like a tokenomics level. That's the cool thing about MetaFactory is like we're not just like a supplier for merch, but we're like a supplier for like tokenomics and value alignment that way. So for example, for the Wi-Fi hoodie, the profits that were generated from the Wi-Fi hoodie went towards like market buying Wi-Fi. Same with like Meme and some of these other communities we've worked with. And in that way, we can actually create these like value aligned ways for communities to like empower themselves and also like have this way for like distributing merch and their culture at the same time. And yeah, like DAO plugin wise, it'd be cool if you can just like add a shop to your DAO, a swag shop to your DAO with a click, and then have the integrated tokenomics there where your MetaFactory like distributes robot to your DAO, and then your DAO sort of like has and also MetaFactory like market buys your DAO's token if that's a thing, with the profits generated from the sales. So yeah,
Positive sum.
I wrote it down. We'll get it on the roadmap.
Yeah. Yeah, that would definitely
awesome.
be cool.
Otherwise, any questions sort of from in the chat, the peanut gallery, anything like that? We try to hold a little time at the end for that in case there's anybody who wants to throw anything out, but it sounds like mainly people want to talk about GameStop, which we'll have to do. I feel like we'll have to do it another time. Otherwise, thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, sure.
Where should people go if they want to check out, get involved, etc. Just MetaFactory.
Follow us on Twitter at the MetaFactory. You can check out our website metafactory.ai. But yeah, Twitter is like where you'll kind of find everything else, and then yeah, join our Discord and come through. Lots of fun stuff.
We have a community call later today. If you're interested in joining that, let us know. I'll send you the link. About an hour from now. So
kick ass. Well, yeah. Thank you to everybody else for joining us for another episode of the House Party. Like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. We got more stuff coming down the pipeline. We have man, I'm like way ahead on booking for this bad boy. We got guests on guests.
awesome.
Nice.
Next week,
Who's up next?
John Tompkins coming through. He's a MetaCartel member, but we're mainly, I think, going to talk about Badger DAO, and that'll probably be the off-the-chain conversation about shorts and Wall Street bets and DeFi and DAOs is the main topic for that one. So that'll be interesting. Otherwise,
tell them we're still waiting. We want to do some Badger DAO. They got some good branding.
Yeah, and he keeps telling me how much money they have in their account. They're like, well, what do we do with it? Merch is a good.
We got a channel
good
open.
answer. Yeah,
just waiting for some design suggestions. Basically,
they seem busy.
Hey, what ideas do you guys have for DAOhaus swag? we've kicked around like house slippers or I don't
I
know.
mean,
Yeah,
I think like even just you have like that purple background and those shapes. Like if you just had like a full like purple hoodie or sweatshirt or something, and like those shapes kind of like scattered around it and like DAOhaus, I think that would look pretty sick. It's like the DAOhaus logo but as a shirt. Because you can do like the full all over print stuff. So
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
maybe it
Do
makes.
you guys
I
do
would go with-
custom bouncy castles yet? Because a DAOhaus bounce castle would be pretty awesome.
Oh man, that would be awesome. I would definitely recommend some like
Maybe we'll make one in crypto voxels.
yeah.
I mean, I know
Definitely-
I'm constantly talking about robes, but robe fits the house slippers vibe as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I would
Yeah, we have a robe template.
a standard like just tee hoodie, and having it be kind of like your just go to everyday merch, and then choosing something like that, like a robe, or I mean, maybe you can have that up as well, but one of those items could also be more of like a limited run, exclusive sale auction that aligns more with what a campaign that you guys have or launch date or whatever that might be. So that way there can be this like amplification, and at the same time, yeah, it kind of like reinforces the like community support from our side and whatnot too. So I would be down to do both house slippers and robe and whatever else you guys have in mind. But yeah, maybe there's a way to create it and align it around like the house party launch or the DAOhaus launch or something.
Great idea.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks a lot.
Peace.